Hi, in this video we're going to solve the equation 2x plus 1 equals 7. But what we're especially going to do is we're going to look at different ways that you might try to solve this equation. We'll look at 3 different ways, and 2 of them are good ways that work, and of the 2 I'd say that one of them is easier. And then there's another way that I want to point out because sometimes people think it works but it doesn't. So we'll look at it and you'll learn why it doesn't work. Alright, so we'll solve the equation 2x plus 1 equals 7. This is going to be method 1 here. And before we get writing, let's represent this with some algebra tiles. So here's 2x plus 1. With my algebra tiles, the red is negative and everything else is positive. And that is equal to, or it's the same as 7. So maybe this time, sometimes I draw a little balance scale to show that. This time I'll draw a little squiggly line. This is my equal sign here. And I'll put 7 little unit tiles on here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right, now usually when people look at this equation, they think, well, there's 2 operations happening. There's multiplying by 2, and there's adding 1. So if we're trying to isolate x, we need to undo those 2 operations, all right? So method 1, what we're going to do is, first of all, we're going to start by subtracting 1. Right? So we'll write down subtract 1 first. Okay, and for method 2, which I'll do right after, we'll start off by dividing, and we'll look at what that looks like. Okay, so with our written algebra, first we'll copy the equation. And then we'll subtract 1. So I'll copy again. And then take away 1 on each side. Using kind of a dark purple to show the operations I'm doing. So now I'll do this, and just to be sure I don't forget a side, I'll do it exactly the same side from both, exactly the same time from both sides. There. So now what we've got is 2x on the left. So that's 2x. And on the right we've got 6. And what we'll do with our algebra tiles here is we'll split them into 2 groups. Just turn them sideways because it makes it easier to fit the 2 groups in. And then I split my tiles into 2 groups as well, 2 equal size groups. And then I focus on just one of the groups. So what that was, with written algebra, what we just did was we divided by 2. So I'll write divided by 2 on both sides. And what we're left with, 2x divided by 2, as we saw over here, is just x. And 6 divided by 2, of course, is 3. So we should always at least check mentally, even if we don't write it down. 2 times 3 is 6. Plus 1, yes, that is indeed 7. So that means that x equals 3 is indeed a correct solution to our equation. All right? So this is a good method. This is actually the method I would suggest you use by default. Occasionally the other method I'm going to show you is easier, but it's a little bit more error prone. I still think it's important to see it so that you know, especially so you know sort of what to watch out for. But also, occasionally the other method is a little more efficient and kind of neat and tidy. So I want you to see it as well. All right, so I'm just going to use a different piece of paper for the other method. Give us a little bit of space here. Copy the same question over here. So this is going to be method 2. And that is divide by 2 first. So what we did the first time was we subtracted 1 from both sides. And what we're going to do from this time is we're going to divide by 2 first. In the last method, I'll just peel this back here so you can see, we subtracted 1 and then divided by 2. We're going to try flipping the order. Okay. Now with this method, I'm going to show you a right way and a wrong way. Right? And I'll do the wrong way first so that you can be aware of it. So this is wrong. Big X on this method. All right, so it starts off very reasonably. We think 2x plus 1 equals 7. And then we want to divide by 2 first. So what a lot of people will do here is they'll say, okay, we'll have to divide my 2x by 2. And so I have to divide the other side of the equation by 2. See, these are good students who make this mistake. They're thinking. So then they think x plus 1 on the left, and that's equal to 7/2, or 7 divided by 2, that's 3.5. So there is a fraction this way, which is why maybe this method is less helpful sometimes, or it's a little bit less easy to use, but it's not actually a problem. This isn't the problem here, the fraction. And then they'd say x plus 1, they say, okay, now I need to subtract 1. Minus 1 equals 3.5, take away 1. So they subtracted 1 from both sides, and they get x equals 3.5, take away 1 is 2.5. All right, so this is, I just want to be really clear, this method is wrong. It's close to right, but it's not right. I think we can understand why it's wrong if we use the algebra tiles. So I'll put my equal sign in, and then I'll show my 2x plus 1 equals 7. These things are always a little bit fiddly, but they're really, really worth it. Maybe even what we'll do is we'll do the right way at the same time, because as soon as we understand what's wrong about this, we'll understand how to fix it. Okay, so we started off, we just copied it down, there's nothing wrong there. All right, and we wanted to divide by 2 first. So we split these into 2 groups. And we split these into 2 groups. Now it would be nice if I had really big fancy scissors here, so I could chop that in half. But I don't want to chop my algebra tile in half. So maybe what I'll do instead is I'll just draw a little half tile. Kind of use this yellow. I'll put half on the top and half on the bottom. So that's to show that I've taken this tile and I've put half up top and half on the bottom. All right, so this almost looks good, right? We've split our 7 into 2 groups. We split our 2x into 2 groups. This right here is the problem, because we haven't split this tile into 2 groups. This little 1 here, see back over here if we look at the written algebra, we didn't divide this 1 by 2. We divided everything else by 2. We're splitting our equation into 2 groups, but we just ignored this. And I think this is something that if we had used the algebra tiles from the start, we would have noticed this little 1 over here, and we would have thought, well, I gotta do something about that. All right, so we can start off by writing this next operation down correctly. Here's our equation. And what we need to do is divide every part of it by 2. And to do this in the picture, I'll do what I did over here with my little coloring. I'll draw half of this thing down here, and the other half of it up top. So what I have on the left side, now when I divide, I split into 2 groups, and then I just pay attention to 1 part, okay? I'm just going to take a little piece of paper, because I can't get rid of the stuff I've drawn, just cover that up there. Right, so this is what we're left with after our division. And it should match up with what we have over here. We had our 2 x's that we split in half, so we're left with 1x. That's right. And then we had our 1, we divided that in 2, we're left with a half, that's right. And our 7 divided by 2 is 3.5. So this right here, maybe I'll use, that'd be a nice color to highlight that in. Maybe this purple. This was the really important thing right here. All right, so we'll cover up that whole bottom part there. All right, so now we have something that we can work with. Maybe you're less used to solving equations that have fractions in them, but this is no trouble really. What we'll do is we'll now take away a half from each side. So we'll subtract a half and subtract a half. So x plus a half, take away a half. Just covering this up, we're getting rid of that. So that's going to leave us with x. And 3.5, take away a half, is just going to leave us with 3. So the algebra tiles here really helped us see why it's important. If we are going to divide first, we really need to divide every term, not just the ones that we're most convenient to divide. So in this case, dividing by 2 first, if you do it properly, it totally gives you the right solution. This is exactly the same solution we had earlier, x equals 3. There's absolutely nothing wrong with this. However, I wouldn't really suggest this method most of the time because it's kind of more of a hassle. You're more likely to run into fractions. You're more likely, I think, to make little mistakes. So I really would recommend what we did first. So method 1, about subtracting first. We can call this collecting like terms. We'll get all of our just plain numbers or our constant terms together on one side first. It's not that dividing by 2 is wrong, it's just that it's much more error prone. So I think this is a safer method for most people. All right, good luck with it.